Have you ever wondered why a man can stay faithful with his body and yet betray you completely with his soul? It happens quietly. No dramatic affair, no lipstick on the collar, just a slow withdrawal, a shift so subtle that only your intuition can detect it. His eyes still look at you, but they no longer see you. His voice still speaks to you, but his words echo through a distance you can't cross. Somewhere out there, unseen, another woman has become his emotional mirror, the place where he lays down his armor, where he reveals what he hides from you, from himself, from the world. This is not about infidelity of the flesh. It's about a fracture in the unseen, a silent betrayal born in the psychological underworld Carl Jung spoke of. Because before a man ever leaves your bed, he leaves your emotional field. In Jungian terms, every man carries within him a feminine image, his anima, the symbolic woman who represents his soul, his intuition, his capacity to feel. When he is disconnected from this inner feminine, he begins to search for her in the outer world. He projects her onto someone, sometimes onto you, sometimes onto another woman. But projection is a fragile illusion. It demands constant feeding. And when the projection fades, he doesn't see you anymore. He sees what's missing in himself. So he moves silently toward another reflection, another soul to mirror the part he's not ready to face. You can sense it in the pauses between his words, in the way he's no longer fully present in the room. You feel it in your body, that quiet ache that whispers, something sacred has shifted. He hasn't touched another woman, yet you feel betrayed, because emotional betrayal wounds not the ego, but the soul. It's the betrayal of intimacy, of the trust that says, you can show me your truth and I will hold it. Some women feel madness rise in them at this point. They start chasing ghosts, scrolling through messages, overanalyzing every tone, every silence. But what they are truly chasing is not him. It's the loss of resonance, the vanishing of the soul connection that once fed their own inner feminine. Because when he withdraws, something inside her begins to starve too. Jung would say that such pain is a summons from the unconscious, a call to awaken from illusion, to stop worshiping the image of love and start confronting its shadow. Because behind the romantic ache lies the deeper truth. You were never meant to complete him. You were meant to awaken him and yourself to the wholeness already within. But awakening often begins in the ruins of projection. He was never truly yours. He was a mirror through which you learned to see yourself. And when that mirror turns away, what remains is the question, who are you without his gaze? You see, most women confuse emotional intimacy with safety. They think that being the one he confides in makes them irreplaceable. But a man can share his soul with you today and with another tomorrow if he hasn't yet faced his own fragmented self. Because until he integrates his anima, his emotional connection will always be an external substitute for inner work. That's the paradox. A man who hasn't faced his darkness cannot love you from his depth, only from his need. He will use connection as escape, tenderness as anesthesia, and vulnerability as theater. He won't mean to deceive you. In his own way, he'll believe it's love. But the moment life demands authenticity, when shadow meets shadow, he will retreat to a safer mirror, one that doesn't show him what he's afraid to see. And you, the woman, are left questioning your worth. You wonder if you weren't enough, if maybe you loved too deeply, too loudly. But the truth is, your love simply illuminated his emptiness. You became the candle that revealed his darkness, and he wasn't ready to face it. This is where the lesson begins. Emotional betrayal is not proof of your inadequacy. It's evidence of his inner fragmentation. A man who shares his soul with another is not running toward love. He's running from integration. He's avoiding the mirror that love holds, the one that demands he face his wounds, his fear of stillness, his unhealed mother, his fragile ego. And yet, this wound, this silent fracture, also holds power, because it forces you, the woman, to confront your own attachment to being chosen, to being the healer, the emotional sanctuary. You begin to realize how much of your identity was built around being the one who understands him. But understanding is not the same as being valued. When he opens his soul to another, it's as if the universe whispers to you, "Now, turn inward." The connection you sought through him was a reflection of your own inner anima, your own deep feminine yearning to be seen, heard, honored. The betrayal, painful as it is, becomes an initiation, the moment your love for him transforms into self-knowledge. Because in the end, the real betrayal is not that he shared his soul with someone else. It's that you shared yours with someone who could not meet you there. There's a particular cruelty in emotional distance, not because it is loud, but because it is silent. A man can still reach for your hand, still say good night, still stand beside you in the photograph, yet his soul has already taken refuge somewhere else. What you feel is not the absence of love, but the presence of disconnection. It's the hollow echo that remains when the emotional bridge collapses and the other side no longer calls back. From a Jungian perspective, this moment is more than heartbreak. It's a confrontation with the shadow of intimacy. Every relationship begins as a projection, a meeting of fantasies rather than souls. He doesn't see you at first, he sees the part of himself he's been forbidden to feel. The tenderness he hides, the vulnerability he represses, the longing for peace he refuses to name. All of it he sees in you. You become his mirror of the feminine unknown. And yet, the same unconscious that drew him toward you will later fear what it sees. Because where there is light, there is shadow. And love, real love, demands that he face both. But few men are taught how to descend into themselves without shame. They are trained to dominate, not to feel, to fix, not to surrender. So when the emotional mirror you offer begins to reveal the cracks within him, his unhealed wounds, his childish need for validation, his buried anger at the women who once failed him, he will retreat. He will begin to protect his ego by sharing his inner world elsewhere with someone who demands less truth. This is why emotional betrayal often begins with a sentence that sounds harmless. "She just understands me." Understand what? His mask, his self-pity, his unintegrated shadow. She becomes the new sanctuary because she doesn't yet challenge his illusion. She doesn't remind him of his potential. She flatters his wound. And so, he calls that safety, not realizing that what he truly seeks is not love, but anesthesia. You might wonder why this dynamic hurts so deeply, even if there was no physical infidelity. It's because the feminine, in its archetypal essence, feels connection as truth. When that truth is redirected elsewhere, it feels like death. Something sacred in you collapses. You feel invisible, erased, displaced by a ghost. And yet, beneath the pain lies a dangerous temptation, the urge to reclaim what was lost by trying to outshine the other woman, to prove your worth through comparison. This is the ego's trap, because comparison keeps you bound to the same illusion, that his validation defines your value. Carl Jung once said that every betrayal is an initiation into deeper consciousness. What feels like rejection is often the psyche's way of forcing you to confront your own dependency on projection, your own habit of seeking wholeness through another's attention. The moment you stop asking, "Why did he do this?" and start asking, "What in me believed that I could only feel whole through his eyes?" That's when the healing begins. There is a sacred rage in this awakening, a rage that is not hatred, but reclamation. It burns away the illusion that love means being chosen. It teaches you that real intimacy cannot be stolen because it cannot exist without mutual awareness. What he shared with another was not depth, it was escape. And escape, no matter how tender it seems, is not love. In the Stoic tradition, Seneca wrote that loss is not the destruction of what you love, but the exposure of your attachment to it. Detachment is not coldness, it's sovereignty. It's the ability to love without begging, to give without collapsing, to see someone's weakness without making it your responsibility to fix. And so, you begin to see that this silent betrayal is not a theft. It's a revelation. It shows you where your boundaries were porous, where your empathy became self-erasure. It teaches you the difference between compassion and self-sacrifice. You realize that you were not betrayed because you were unworthy. You were betrayed because you were too real for a man still living in illusion. He wanted the reflection, not the mirror. And that, perhaps, is the deepest tragedy. He will go on repeating the same cycle, mistaking projection for connection, until life humbles him into self-awareness. But that journey is his, not yours. Your work now is not to chase closure, but to embody truth, to reclaim the energy you once poured into proving your worth. Because emotional betrayal, when faced with consciousness, becomes alchemy. The pain that once broke you begins to sculpt you. The silence that once terrified you becomes peace. And somewhere in the distance, when you no longer seek to be understood by him, you'll begin to understand yourself. Not as someone who was abandoned, but as someone reborn through awakening. There comes a moment, often in the middle of a sleepless night, when she realizes it wasn't just love that broke. It was her illusion of safety. She stares into the quiet darkness, trying to find where it all began to slip. The memory reels back to that first confession he made to her. A story from his childhood, an insecurity he had never told anyone before. She remembers how sacred that felt, how it tethered their souls in invisible light. That memory now hurts like a wound pressed by salt, because it was never just about what he shared. It was about what it meant. You are the place where my truth is safe. But truth, to an unconscious man, is temporary shelter. He visits it when convenient, not when called. And when another person offers him that same illusion of safety without accountability, he drifts toward it, unaware that he's abandoning not just you, but his own process of individuation. In Jungian psychology, individuation is the soul's great task, the integration of all fragments into a unified self. Most men never reach it, not because they lack capacity, but because they fear the descent required. They want to be loved, but not revealed, seen, but not mirrored too clearly. The feminine energy, however, by her very nature, reveals. She is the mirror of wholeness, and a mirror, for a man still ruled by his ego, can feel like an enemy. That's why he turns toward another, not because she is better, but because she is simpler. She does not yet challenge his ego, she soothes it. She becomes the canvas for his next projection, while you remain the mirror that reflects the truth of who he is. And truth is unbearable for the unready. So you, the woman left behind, must walk the line between pain and revelation, between heartbreak and awakening. Because what you are facing is not the end of love, it's the end of illusion. The betrayal you feel is not only his, it's the betrayal of your own intuition, the one you silenced when it whispered, "Something's changing." That small voice that told you his affection was shifting form, that his eyes no longer lingered with curiosity but with guilt. You knew. You always knew. Yet you stayed quiet, because hope can sound louder than truth when you're afraid of losing what you love. But the psyche keeps score. The feminine soul, wise and ancient, will never let you remain where you are unseen. It will use heartbreak as the hammer that cracks the shell of your dependency. It will pull you into shadow work, that sacred process of meeting the parts of you that thought love must be earned, that thought emotional devotion must be fought for. Shadow work isn't romantic. It's raw, it's unglamorous, and it will make you face the archetype of the wounded feminine within you, the woman who confuses caretaking with worth, empathy with endurance, forgiveness with self-abandonment. She's the one who keeps waiting for him to remember what he lost, not realizing that he can't even see what he never truly recognized. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." What he did, or who he spoke to, or where his emotional loyalty now resides, none of it defines you. What defines you is the consciousness you bring to this pain, because now you are being invited into the sacred solitude that the ancients called inner sovereignty, the knowing that your emotional depth is not a curse but a crown. You are not too much. You are simply the mirror of his unconsciousness. In time, you'll see that the greatest act of power is not revenge nor indifference, but transmutation. You take what was meant to diminish you and turn it into light. You stop asking, "Why wasn't I enough?" and start realizing, "I was more than he was ready to meet." Every woman who awakens from emotional betrayal carries within her a new kind of beauty. Not the soft glow of innocence, but the fierce calm of self-possession. Her eyes no longer search for belonging, they radiate it. Her voice no longer pleads to be heard, it speaks truth quietly, and the world listens. And somewhere, the man who once betrayed her may begin to feel the emptiness that follows false connection. He'll remember the depth he abandoned and mistake it for nostalgia. But she will not return to be his redemption, because she has become her own sanctuary, no longer a mirror for the broken, but a light for the awake. The silent betrayal that once shattered her has now become the silence that strengthens her. The silence that follows emotional betrayal is unlike any other kind. It's not the peace of solitude. It's the deafening quiet of recognition. She begins to realize that his absence is not merely physical, but energetic. His presence used to fill the air with warmth, with anticipation. Now, even when he's near, the atmosphere feels thin, weightless, almost hollow. It's in that space, that eerie stillness between words, that the feminine psyche begins to awaken. Pain, once unbearable, starts to speak a strange language. It whispers, "Do you see how you gave yourself away? Do you see how you mistook intensity for intimacy?" For the first time, she sees that her desire to understand him was never just about love. It was about control. The subtle illusion that if she could decode his wounds, she could keep him. But love is not logic. It's mirror work. And what you cannot face within yourself, you will chase endlessly in another. Jung taught that what we love in others is what we have not yet claimed within ourselves. So when a woman falls for a man who cannot stay emotionally loyal, she's meeting the mirror of her own unhealed masculine, the part of her that abandons herself whenever love demands more courage than comfort. That is the cruel and sacred irony of betrayal. It returns you to yourself. The woman who has been emotionally betrayed begins to move differently in the world. Her softness doesn't disappear, it deepens. Her compassion becomes sharper, more discerning. She no longer rushes to heal anyone who is drowning. She recognizes that some men choose to drown because they fear the shore. She no longer mistakes emotional chaos for chemistry. She sees the difference between a man who seeks her light and a man who feeds on it. This is the initiation Jung called the confrontation with the animus, the inner masculine principle within a woman's psyche. For too long, she gave this power away to the outer man, believing he was the source of her validation, her direction, her safety. But through betrayal, she begins to reclaim that authority. She realizes the voice she wanted from him, the one that says, "You are enough, you are worthy, you are home," was meant to rise from within her all along. And when that voice awakens, something extraordinary happens. She stops needing to be chosen. In the depths of heartbreak, there is a turning point, a sacred inversion of energy. The love that once flowed outward begins to flow inward. She starts nurturing her own silence, feeding her own soul, tending to her inner landscape like a garden that no longer depends on weather. She realizes that solitude isn't loneliness, it's sovereignty. She begins to feel gratitude even for the betrayal, not because it was fair, but because it was transformative. It exposed every illusion she built to feel safe. It showed her where her worth was outsourced. It stripped away the fantasy of being the understanding woman who loves enough to fix what's broken. Because love is not meant to fix, it's meant to reveal. You see, he didn't betray her because she lacked anything. He betrayed her because he feared being truly seen. The masculine ego, when unhealed, seeks admiration, not intimacy. It thrives on the illusion of control, and when a woman's love becomes a mirror that reflects his truth, he calls it pressure, not partnership. But his avoidance is her awakening. His silence teaches her to listen to her own voice. His confusion becomes the mirror of her clarity. What once felt like rejection becomes redirection, a cosmic correction, of course. There's a moment, quiet but revolutionary, when she no longer wants revenge or closure. She no longer checks if he's thinking about her, talking to someone else, regretting his choice. The spell breaks. She looks at him, or the memory of him, and feels nothing but understanding. Not softness, not bitterness. Just understanding. Because she's seen beyond the veil. She sees that love in its truest form is not possession. It's recognition, a meeting of consciousness. And if one soul turns away, the other is not less whole. Love never dies. It simply changes form. This is how heartbreak becomes initiation. It burns through illusion until all that remains is truth. And the truth is this: no man can take what was never his to hold. Your essence, your soul, your wholeness, that belongs only to you. There comes a day when the ache finally quiets, not because the memory fades, but because it no longer has power. The woman who once trembled at his distance begins to stand still, inside herself. Her reflection changes, not in the mirror, but in the way she meets her own eyes. She no longer searches for the echo of someone else's affection there. She looks and sees her own presence, unshaken, whole. It's not that she stops loving, it's that her love transforms. It matures from longing into wisdom, from dependency into discernment. She no longer prays for him to return. She prays for clarity, for expansion, for truth. Because what once felt like the end was never an ending. It was a threshold. In the alchemy of the soul, betrayal is a catalyst. It forces the psyche into integration. Jung wrote that nothing transforms consciousness faster than suffering consciously endured. The betrayal that once shattered her identity now becomes the forge of her individuation, the process by which she becomes herself, no longer defined by the gaze of the other. She begins to see how her story fits into something far greater, an archetypal drama that has unfolded for centuries. The awakening of the feminine from the trance of pleasing, healing, waiting. Every woman who reclaims herself from emotional dependency becomes part of that silent revolution. She understands now that his betrayal was not personal. It was symbolic. He represented the unawakened masculine, wounded, avoidant, disconnected from his own soul. His emotional disloyalty was not a rejection of her worth, but a reflection of his fragmentation. To take it personally would be to misunderstand the language of the unconscious. For the first time, she stops interpreting pain as punishment. She starts reading it as instruction. The tears that once blurred her vision now wash her inner eyes clear. Through them, she begins to see her own shadow, the part of her that loved him not because of who he was, but because of what he mirrored, the part that equated being needed with being loved, being chosen with being enough. And in that realization, compassion is born, not for him, for herself. Compassion for the woman who stayed too long, who explained too much, who gave until she was empty. Compassion for the part of her that believed love was something to earn, rather than something to embody. That's how healing truly begins, when you stop resenting the woman you were during the fall. Because she was not weak, she was becoming. Every surrender, every heartbreak, every tear carried her closer to truth. She had to lose the illusion of being understood by another to discover what it means to understand herself. Seneca once wrote, "The one who has prepared herself for everything has deprived misfortune of its power." This is what emotional maturity looks like, not the hardening of the heart, but the deep knowing that nothing external can dictate your peace. When she reaches that understanding, she doesn't close her heart. She refines it. She learns to love without losing herself. Now, when someone offers her attention, she doesn't rush toward it. She observes. She listens, not to their words, but to her own nervous system. Does this connection feel calm or chaotic? Does it expand her energy or drain it? She no longer confuses excitement with alignment. She has learned that real intimacy doesn't live in confessions or shared trauma. It lives in presence, in mutual awareness, in the quiet knowing that love is not a performance but a practice. And somewhere deep within her, the feminine and the masculine, her inner archetypes, begin to reconcile. The part of her that once sought to heal others now protects her boundaries. The part that once feared solitude now craves it. She becomes both the nurturer and the guardian of her soul. If he ever crosses her path again, she will look at him not with anger, but with clarity. He will sense it immediately, that the energy he once fed upon no longer resides in her. She no longer vibrates at the frequency of longing. She has become still water, deep, calm, reflective, unyielding to storms. And in that stillness, she finally understands what love truly is. Not attachment, not possession, not rescue. Love is awareness. It's the space where two souls meet without hiding, without fear, without projection. If that kind of love never arrives again, she will not despair, because she has already found it within. The betrayal that once fractured her has completed its sacred purpose, to return her to herself. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.